All right. So this is going to be the beginning of my my game here. I don't have a title for it just yet, so I'm just gonna bring something up here. Where is it? Okay, so I made this spreadsheet here off information off a wiki page. So these are basically locations that are from all the different Final Fantasy games. So I'm just going to be using these as a way to, um, and then I sorted the code names by alphabetically. So kind of what I'll do is each project will be a different letter. So this project will be A, the next one will be something from B, and then C and D, and you get the idea. I thought I marked it, but I'm not seeing it marked. So basically this one will be anything here. And hang on a second. I want to check something. Yeah, I'm not seeing it in the list. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'll figure it out later. But the name I had given it was Academia, but I'm not seeing it in the list, so I'm wondering if maybe I didn't save something. Anyway, we'll just forget that. So, this is where it's gonna go. So there's a couple of things I do when I do my development stuff, or when it has to come to my workflow. Um, so the first thing is I have a, let's see, I'll just open a new one, I guess. And so this is Jira. So this is what I'm using for keeping track. Basically, it's a ticket system. So keeping track of bugs, keeping track of new features, that sort of thing. So we're going to actually. Actually, I have to log in as this account. So we're going to go ahead and create a new project within Jira for this project, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to create a new project here. And I'm just going to use a basic software development project. Okay. I'll have to double check on this, but we'll just go ahead and say select, and we're going to give it a name. And since we don't know what the actual name is, we'll just give it the code name. Now the only downside is the thing here is it's going to name it based off of this name. So since this is actually going to line up, and you can't really change this later, so it doesn't really matter. I don't really care. So I'm just going to go ahead and say submit. And say now we want to create a board here. And this is more or less just for keeping track of, I'll just call this overview. I'm not really sure what to name it. Okay. So I want to check the workflow real quick, because I don't think it changes. I don't think it set it to the one I want to use. I think it just set it to a default one. Yeah. So this is the workflow that it has right now, which basically means any state can transition to any state, and I typically don't like this one. So we're gonna switch the scheme here. And I am going to use my default workflow scheme that I've created for all the projects that I'm going to create with this. So now there's a default workflow, and so if I click on this one, it's more of a workflow here. So we also have a backlog. So so now if I go to the, I think it's overview here. Okay, so if we go to configure on this board, and we go to columns. Okay, so we have a couple different states here. So basically when a ticket's created, it's going to go to the backlog. So this goes here. And then we have, once it's in the backlog, we transition it to here, here, and here. So this would be like open. That one doesn't exist, so we could just get rid of that. And then okay, review, we can get rid of that one. And then we have where it gets resolved or closed. Okay. And reopen would be here. Okay. And then I'm just going to change this to completed. Okay. And then now if we go back, there's still nothing here because I haven't created any tickets, but now we have a backlog section. And we have we have a version here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new version. And I'll just say version 0.0 or something like that, right? Initial version. Did I spell that wrong? Yeah, I did. So I'll go ahead and create that. So now any tickets that get created are gonna take on this version, and then as we upgrade the version of the project, we'll create new versions here. Okay, so everything's set up, so I'm gonna go ahead and log off this account, and then I'm gonna log in with my account. So the reason I had to log in with that account is because this account's a limited account and it doesn't have permission to actually create new projects. Okay, so if I view all my projects here, oh crap, I forgot. I forgot to give it permission. Okay, so let's log off. Log on. Let's log on as this account again. And then if we go down to users and roles, I should be able to add and just, if you hadn't noticed, I kind of named my other user accounts based on Final Fantasy characters. So okay, so this is going to be a user role here, and then so if I go to permissions, as long as I'm part of the users, I should be able to browse the project, and then I should be able to create an issue, which is the ticket, basically. Okay, so now if I log in, I should be able to do this. So now if I go to projects, now we can see it. So I can go ahead and create a ticket here, and I can change the issue type. So here I'll just say task, and I'll just say create Unity project. So I'll just say a new Unity project needs to be created. I guess that's a priority. I'll just set it to medium, and I can get a label, like say Unity project, something like that. I'll assign this to me, and then I can go ahead and create that ticket there. So now I'll go to the backlog, and then if I had a lot of issues, this is where I would prioritize them, and then when I'm ready to work on them, I would just kind of drag them up here, and then once I do that, then I can see it show up on my board here. So currently it's in to do, which means I haven't started to work on it yet or anything. So if I open this ticket, there's a field I'm not seeing. Okay, so I guess I have to assign it that way. Okay. So, so from here, so we have a ticket to create the Unity project. So this is all set up. As I work on the project, I'll be using this to keep track of issues, like bugs and stuff like that, or features that I want to implement, but I don't want to work on it just yet. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and open, let's see, this is the Unity hub, and I had a project created, but I'm going to start over just for doing the video. I didn't put too much work into it, so I don't care if I start over. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this from the list. It doesn't even... Yeah, that's fine. So we're going to create a new project using the latest version, which is 2019.2.11 final 1, which is what that F part is. Okay, so this will be a 3D project. Location's fine. And then the name for this is... Here, I'll just preempt it with codename. That way, when I look at it in the folder, if it has codename in it, I know it's just a temporary name until we actually assign the name. So then I'm just going to go ahead and say create. And this might actually take a little bit to create. It's not horrible. It just partially the reason is because my U drive is actually not on my local system. It's on a network attached storage device, so it's actually going over the network. So it's probably not as fast as it would be if it was local, but my network attached storage is on a RAID, so if something happens to one of the hard drives, I don't lose my data. I can just replace it, where my local system only has a single hard drive. So I want to make sure I protect my project. Excuse me. Okay, so here we are in Unity, and so this is what a basic project looks like. So this is what they refer to as the scene view, and then this is the actual game view. But I'm not going to jump into it just yet, so I'm going to go ahead and exit out for a second. But we can see here that we have a new folder, and it has a structure and everything inside it. Okay. So the reason why we closed it is now I'm going to open this application, which is called SourceTree. So this is what they refer to as source control. So I'm actually going to have to create a new one here. Okay. Okay, so we're going to browse to... Oh, yay. Yeah, I'll do that later. Alright, so this is our project folder. I'm going to select this folder. Okay. Why isn't it? Oh, okay. I did the wrong thing. That's what happened. Let me start over here. So... Okay, so that's if you're going to clone it. We're not going to clone it. We're not going to add it. So adding it is if it's not in the list, but you already have a clone repository, or a it already has a Git repository. We don't have one yet, so we're going to create a new repository. Okay, so that's what happened. So I'm going to select our project folder here. Okay. And then this is a Git repository. I could do this. I'm not going to do it right now, but this will basically create the repository that's created locally onto what is it, Bitbucket, which is a cloud service. So the project won't be just here, it'll also get synced up to a cloud repository. But for right now, I'm not going to worry about doing that. And then I'm just going to say create. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So since it's just created the Git repository, it's basically going to treat everything as new or not tracked. I think is that's how to phrase it. So all these files are are basically untracked files that it's detecting. Now this is all because I just created the project, but there's a problem because there are a number of files, like anything in the library directory is usually temporary, and you don't really need it, or at least you don't need it as part of your source control. So in order to fix this, I believe, let me see. Actually, I don't think that's the right one. So what I'm going to do is I am going to jump into here, and I have this git ignore file, and I'm just going to copy this one. And just to make sure, I want to check something. Yeah, there are different dates. So I'll do that later. But basically what I'm going to do is I am going to go into the project folder, and we can see the git folder there. And we're going to paste this file right here. Okay, so if you're wondering what's inside it, we can open this. Here, I'll just open it with Visual Studio Code here. So this is basically like things you want to be excluded or ignored from the source control. So as you can see right here, the library folders and temp folder and all that kind of fun stuff is all being ignored. So this is just a file to kind of tell it that. So now if I go back to SourceTree and trying to remember, there we go. So if we refresh, I believe it's refresh. Yeah. So now you'll notice that none of the library entries that were there before are here. We can also see that the git ignore file is there. So one of the things you can do is you can select on a file and you can see it over here. Normally, after the initial check-in, when you start doing stuff, it'll actually highlight things that have changed, like things that have been added or things that have been removed from the document from the last check-in. But since none of this has been checked in yet, it's not tracking it, so it has no idea what's changed because nothing's changed, because it doesn't know. It doesn't have a previous version. Okay, so we're now going to stage all this, and we're going to close it, and then so here we're supposed to just kind of indicate what is part of this commit, right? So here I'm just going to say I'll just say initial commit for project. Something like that. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so then I'll go ahead and hit commit. And then now if we go to history, we have an entry for it. And then also what I like to do here is I'll do a tag, and then I'll line it up with what I did on the Jira project. You know, so we gave it that version number of 0.0. So we're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to add a tag. And then so now as you progress through, you can keep track of when you jump from one version to another. Okay. Now, okay, so now we're going to go ahead and open our project back up. So now we're ready to work on it. So those are the two things that I kind of work with when I work on a Unity project. So one is for keeping track of issues and features using Jira, and then the other one is using SourceTree to do source control. So basically what that means is if I have the project running and let's say it's working to a certain extent, and then I decided, you know, and I committed those changes into SourceTree, and then I go and I start changing some code around, and then all of a sudden it's not working anymore, and I don't know what I changed. I have no idea what happened. I don't know what changed. I just know it's not working anymore. So what I could do is I can go into, I don't do it a whole lot, so but basically I think you're doing a fetch. I don't remember. I think you would fetch it. But anyway, you have the option of basically pulling down the last version, and so it basically ends up replacing your files back to that history and time. So I lost any changes that I did, but it's now working again. And also with this, you can actually, they have these things called branches. So right now we're working in the master branch. But like, for example, you have the project, it's working, you want to implement a new feature, and then so you'll create a separate branch, and you'll work with basically a copy of it. And then once that feature has been completed, you can merge that back into the master branch sort of thing. It's probably a little bit more than what I'm going to be doing here, but you know, you have that option. So like if you're on a team, the master branch is your production version, and then you can create copies to work on it, that sort of thing. But anyway, so let's just bring this over here. Okay, so one thing I want to do, I always hate the skybox until I actually need it. So I am just going to go into here. So we have a couple different views here. Okay, so this is our hierarchy view, and then this is our project view. And then so the project view here is, these are files that are on the file system. So if I bring this over here, I'm sorry, that's the wrong thing. So if I yeah, so if I bring this over here, so I'm in the assets folder, which is assets here, and it has the scene folder. So this view lines up with what's on the file system. And then this one up here is the hierarchy is what's in the game scene. So these are game objects that are in the scene. Okay, so what we want to do is create our structure a little bit. So I'm going to create some folders here. So usually there's a, okay, so I'm going to do, I'm going to call this game specific. And so these are items that are specific to this game. And then, so I'll do animations. So these are all stuff that eventually I'll get to, but it's not going to happen just yet. So this one I'm not sure on. I mean, audio sounds better, but I could call it sounds, but that doesn't really sound like music. So I'll just call it audio, I guess. There's materials, and we got models that we're gonna do, and then we have prefabs, which is a Unity thing. Okay, we already have scenes, I'll just have to move it, and then we have scripts. Okay, so move this here. And this structure I'll have to play with as we go along. Okay, so anyway, back to the camera here. I guess I can leave that expanded. Okay, so one thing is there's all these packages that come installed when you create a new project, and I'm probably not going to need them. I don't know of a way of getting rid of them from the default project, so I kind of just have to. Okay, so show me only what's in the project. Okay, so see, like some of the stuff, it's just like, why is it here? I don't know. So like the writer editor is a it's basically a code editor. That's not what I'm using. And actually, yeah. So we're just gonna go ahead and remove it. I guess I could look up some of these if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. Now, I was trying to use the Visual Studio Code Editor, and I was trying to get away from regular Visual Studio Community Edition, but I found a number of things in this editor that I just didn't like, so for now I'm not going to switch. I mean, I could use it if I had to, but I'm not gonna force myself to. Not at this point anyway. But I do like the editor, just not for Unity stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and remove that one too. Okay, Unity UI, we want to keep that. Timeline. I guess we can keep that for now. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using this, but basically this is a way to, you know, I guess I will remove it. When it gets to the point where I was like, hey, I want to use timeline, then I'll just go ahead and re-add it back. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of it. If I end up not using it, then it won't be there. So this just kind of reduces the size of the project because I don't have all this stuff, install all these packages installed. Unity Collaborate is something I'm not going to use because it's basically Unity's version of what this SourceTree is doing for me. It's source control done directly through Unity to their own cloud source control system, but you only get like a gigabyte. After that, anything more than that, you have to pay them. So we are going to use that. Again, I'll get rid of this unless I actually need it. Okay, the package manager is actually this, so we can't get rid of it. So we're going to go to this one. So don't think I need that, so I'm going to get rid of that too. Okay, so we have the UI, we have Text Mesh Pro, and we have the Unity UI. That looks good. So we can go back here if we want to. How often you do this is just kind of dependent on your workflow, I guess. But you'll notice now there's uncommitted changes, and we can see here that there's okay, so these ones, okay, these were moved. So from the original check-in, it's saying that they're not in the location they were in. All these ones are track changes, or not track changes. So this is stuff that, so basically these are metadata files for the folders that I created, basically. And then we have this package manifest, so we can see that all these entries that are in red here were removed. So all these ones have to do with the packages I just removed. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and stage all this. And I will just say removed unneeded packages from it's the package manager. So we'll go ahead and commit that. And then so now we have another entry. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back here, and I'm going to change this to solid color. And then I'm going to change this to like some people refer to it as like a game black. It's not quite all the way black, but it's mostly black. It's if you look at some RPG games where you're like you walked into someone's house or a hotel or something, and they have the part where you can this is kind of like a top-down game, right? So classic RPG, think classic RPG. So you'll be looking down at the character, and then as you get towards the walls, you can see that it's all black on the other side. Typically, it's relatively close to this color. I don't know if it's this color exactly, but it's not quite pure black. It's a little bit brighter. So that's what we're trying to do here. So, okay, so the other thing I want to do, let's see here. Okay, so what I want to do here, this is more just for reference, and so everything's kind of in one place. So here I am in the project folder. Here's our assets folder. Okay, but we're gonna go up a level, and I'm gonna create a new folder called workflow. Okay, and I put an underscore just so it appears at the top, and then here I'm gonna create this. This is like step 1, which is our design process, and then I'm just gonna paste these. So these kind of show us the ideas that we sketched out beforehand. So this is kind of the general gist of the game. So so we have this like altar thing, which attracts, you know, monsters and stuff. So we have monsters that will be attacking it from 2 different sides, and then the player will be defending it. So as the monsters appear, the player will have to kill them, you know. If the monsters get near it, they'll start attacking it, and if they deplete its health, then the player will lose. Now it's going to work on a wave system, so it'll be like wave 1, and it'll over the course of time it'll spawn a certain number of monsters within that wave, and if they're able to defend off that wave, then the altar will reward the player with some power-ups like health, or you know, maybe like an attack up, or something like that, right? So that's sort of the general idea, and then I came up with the idea of, on every 5th wave, we'll have a boss character that shows up, like around, I don't know, like 10% of the remaining, you know, normal guys, the boss will appear to cause havoc, right? So you got to defend it against the boss now. So that's sort of the general idea. We do have some other. So this is just a general idea of how the player works. So the player is just going to move left to right, but they can jump. It probably isn't going to be a whole need of jumping in this game, but it'll be there if the player wants to jump. So we'll have a score manager, because we'll have a score. So when you attack, you know, when you defeat enemies, you know, you'll earn a score, sort of thing. So that's talking about the wave that we were just talking about. So this is kind of how the different screens are supposed to work in the game. So when the game starts, you'll appear on this home screen. If you want to change the options, you'll go to this options screen, and then you'll come back to the home screen. If you do start, then you'll go to the game screen and play the game, but if you die or whatever, then it'll go to game over, and then eventually go back to the home screen, sort of thing. Okay, so and then we have a character class, and then so these are some ideas. I don't know if I'm going to stick with these, but It just gives me something visually to look at for what the bosses would be, right? I also had this attack chain idea going on where when you defeated a monster, um, it would have like a timer, right? So if you kill the next monster within that timer, you would actually get a score bonus from it, and then, but the timer would then reduce after each kill, so that eventually you won't have enough time to get the next kill, and then the chain would have to be restarted. Or if you waited too long to kill the next one, it would deplete, and then you wouldn't get the bonus. So that's kind of the idea there. So, but for stuff that, because if I put it in this folder, when you build the game, it will actually take everything in this folder, excluding certain things like editor scripts when it builds it. So we don't want that to happen. So anyway, so let's just pretend this is the home screen. So we're going to we're gonna go ahead and create a UI, and we're gonna click on Text Mesh Pro. So the difference here is this is like an old text one. This one's better because it's a lot more crisp when you make it bigger and when you zoom in on it and all that stuff. And this one tends to get blurry. So, but we have to import an asset for this to work. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And then it's going to create a Text Mesh Pro folder in my assets. Okay. So go ahead and close that. And then I am going to create a new folder and call it plugins. And then I'm just gonna drop this there. Now I'm not 100% sure how this works because they put stuff in my assets folder where my stuff is, but then there's also an entry down here that gets created in the packages. So I'm not sure why they couldn't just put everything there, because if it's in packages I really don't care about it. But anyway, this is how I kind of handle it. I just create a plugins folder, I drop it in there, and then I just kind of leave it alone. And then all this stuff is stuff that I will be creating. So I'm going to go ahead and, okay, I'm going to save this. I made this mistake last time. You have to save it first or you'll lose your work. And then I'm going to I'm not really sure how I want to name this stuff. I guess I could say home screen like that, maybe. Yeah, so since I renamed the scene I'm working in, it wants to reload, so I'm going to say reload. So if you forget to save it, it will actually reload the scene before it was saved. So anyway, so go here. So I'm just going to do kind of a placeholder right now. And so I'm just going to say your logo here, that sort of thing. And then So we're gonna kind of resize this like this. I want to make the text a lot bigger. Say about 92 maybe. Let's go ahead and center it. I'll say about right there, I guess it would be good. And then we're gonna go to our rect transform here and click, and what this is gonna do is we're gonna anchor it to the top center. So you can kind of see this little doohickey, it moves, right? So what happens is when the screen changes, if I do it like this, it'll always remain on top. Okay, so if you rescale this, it'll always remain in the center at the top of the screen, or that's where the anchor point is. It'll leave its position relative to that anchor point, but I guess you can kind of get the idea, right? So the other thing we got to do is go to canvas here and change this, which is the UI scaler mode for the canvas scaler, to scale with screen size. And then I'll just give it a typical HD resolution, which is 1920 by 1080. So it doesn't look like anything's really changed, but if the screen scales, this will make it scale a lot better. So, and then so here I'll just say I'll just do it like that. So okay, so now if I hit save, you kind of want to save as frequently as you can, I guess. Okay, so if we go back to our graphics, so if we go back here and then we go to our, so we had a start option and in options, but well, they're supposed to be buttons, but so we want to go ahead and create those. So we could create a different canvas, but I'm just gonna reuse the same one here. It shouldn't be that big of a deal for this example. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a button. Not quite sure how big I want to make these. So I'll say 400 by 100. The text is really small because we need to, I guess, change the size here. Okay, that might be a little big. Again, these are going to be just placeholders until we actually, we'll go back later and make them all pretty and all that kind of fun stuff. But so I'm going to say start button, and then here I'm just going, well, I'll go ahead and position this. Okay, I guess that's centered. Okay, so just okay, so this is typically where you would have a prefab. So here I'm just gonna make this generic. I'm gonna change it back to just say button. Okay, and then so we're gonna turn this into a prefab. So that basically means taking a game object and saving it to our disk so that we can reuse it when we need to. So I'm gonna just call this button for right now. And then I'm gonna drop this here. And then so it creates a button. It makes it blue here. So now this button is referenced here. So if I created say 3 buttons and I was like, oh man, I needed to change that one setting and I didn't, so now I got 20 buttons I need to do it on. Well, if they were all created from a prefab, you just have to change it here and then they would all inherit that change. So this is gonna be start. I'm gonna do it like that. Oh, that looks better. Okay. And so now I'm gonna change this. Start. And then I'll just duplicate this one. And this will be options button. And so we'll bring it down a little bit and we'll change the text here to options. Okay, so I guess I'm going to kind of position these in the center. So we're just going to leave the anchor, I think is what they call it, on the center. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so I don't know, it does look like it's a little too high though. So I'm gonna select both of these and say, I don't know, about right there maybe. That looks good. Okay. Let's say well, that doesn't look right. Huh. It changes the Y position as well, so that makes it troublesome. Okay. So anyway, I'll just leave it like that. So And at some point we'll do a background graphic or something like that. I won't worry about the options screen just yet. Mostly I just wanted to go to the next scene, which will be the game screen. So for that we need to create a new scene. So okay, so let me go to my build settings here. And I want to add the current scene into the project, otherwise it'll have issues. So I'll just do that and it'll go ahead and add it for me. So currently see, these are all the different platforms you can do. I'm just not sure. It might be a little bit more difficult to do it on Android, but we could probably work that out if we have to. We'll have to see how it goes. I'll keep it on PC for now. So I'm gonna go ahead and do save project. Because I think we changed the project settings there. Okay, so now I'm gonna create a new scene. And then, so like I said, I'm gonna change this like I did the other one. So everything's 25 here. Okay. Oops, that didn't sound right. Oh. Yeah, it hasn't actually saved it. Okay. So this, I'm gonna just call this the game screen, and these can all be changed later. It's not that big. It's not that big of a deal if it's not named exact right now. Okay. So we're actually gonna go back to the home screen though, and then I believe we need to create a script now. So if we click here, we have this button script because it's a UI button, so it's automatically added. And we can click here. But we don't have anything we can reference here. So I'm just going to remove that for the moment. So I am going to create a new script. And we will call this home screen navigation. And I'll double click on it. This will open Visual Studio for us with our project. And it gives me this warning because all my stuff's on the network location. But if I just uncheck that and say okay, then it just does its thing. Ah, damn it. Alright. hold on. This isn't necessary, this is just me being me, I guess. So I downloaded a new version, and so I have to do this every time I download a new version. So if I go into this folder, I have this custom script, which basically doesn't have anything because every time I create it with the other ones, I always end up removing them. So I'm just going to copy this. Okay, yeah. I guess I can get rid of that then. Alright, well, I'll deal with that later. Alright, so I gotta go to my program files, and I think it's Unity, and then it's the version I'm using, which is the 2019.2.11 final one. And I go into the editor folder. I think it's data, resources, script templates. So I'm going to paste the new version here. Okay. And then now, if I go and create a new script, it's so if I do that, now if I double click on it, it'll open in Visual Studio. And now it doesn't really have anything in it. So I think here for this, I believe it's looking for, what is this, like update day or something? I think it's looking for a static method. So we're going to do public static void, and we'll say start game button, and then we'll do another one where we'll say options button. I don't know. I'll put click at the end, just so it kind of defines what kind of action it is, I guess. So I'm not gonna put any code in just yet. I want to make sure I did this right. So if I click on the start button here, and I go back to that click event, this time I don't think this is showing me way more than what I want to look at. So probably the easiest thing here, yeah, that's not what I wanted, is just drag and drop this. That's probably going to be the easiest thing. And then, okay, so maybe it's not static, because I'm not seeing it. So let's try just public. I thought it was static, but it could be wrong. Maybe it's just public that it wants. Let me... Oh, that's not working either. Yeah, I don't think that's right. I think the other way I had it was right. But let me double check here. Alright. That is all part of the process of something doesn't work, you gotta kind of figure it out. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's a week, depending on what it is. Okay. So I did this. Well, I didn't do it totally wrong, but okay. So we're doing it without the static. I was wrong on that. We don't need to do it that way. I'm pointing it to the wrong thing. We actually need a game object here. So one thing I kind of like to do is I like to create empty ones. And then like here, I'll put this here and I'll say sorry, camera and lights, and then I'll disable it, right? And then I'll create another one. And then I'll just I'll say game systems, right? And then I will do another one. I'll say game. Well, I'll just do that was kind of generic right now, but so okay, so we're gonna create another one and we're gonna drop it right here. I guess we'll call this navigation manager, something like that, right? And then we're going to drop this script onto this object. Okay, now when we select this guy, we can now drop this object here, And then now we should have okay, there it is. Start game button, click. So click on that. And then we could do the same thing here. So this time we're going to select the options button, click. Okay. And then just to make sure these are working, it doesn't, you know, just something basic. So we'll go to our console here, and then we'll hit play. So if I click on start, we can see that it said start game. So we know that's working. So they both appear to be working. Now there is a way to do the registration of all this stuff in code. It's somewhat of a headache, so I'm not really going to do it right now. This is the easier way of doing it. Here our focus is try to get something built with the least amount of work that we have to do here. So so now what we want to do is to have it jump to the other scene. So I'm just gonna get rid of these just because we know they're working. And then there's a thing where if you have too many debug.log entries, your game can actually suffer performance, because even though you don't have a console while you're running the game, like on, let's say, a mobile device or something, it's still executing that code. So there are times where people try to create all these log entries, and then all of a sudden they find out, you know, I think there is a way to do it where it doesn't, you can leave them in there and then not have to remove them, but there isn't a performance impact if you do it a certain way. But I'm not going to worry about doing that right now. So what we want to do is we want to be able to load another scene. So I'm going to do so we're going to include the unity.sceneManagement namespace, and then if I do scene manager load scene, I can give it the name of a scene, right? Which okay, game tax screen is the name of it. So Okay. Now, our game screen doesn't really have anything on it right now. So, I'm just gonna do a quick thing here, and I'm just gonna say game screen. Okay. And that should be good. Okay. So I go ahead and save that. So at least we have something on here to identify that what it is. Alright, so we're going to go back to the home screen. And so now we're going to hit play. And then we're going to click on start. Yeah, I forgot about that. So the problem is it's not in the build settings. So we have the home screen, but we don't have the game screen. So we're just going to take this and drag it here. And then so we're going to run it again. And this time it should work. There we go. So there we have our button working. I don't have an options screen right now, or I would kind of rig that up too. I mean, technically I could okay. So I could rig it up like that, but it's obviously not going to work because it doesn't exist. So if I say options, it's saying it hasn't been added to the build settings because it doesn't exist. So if I take this game screen, I should be able to duplicate it here. And I'll just call it options screen. And then we can go to the build settings and add in our options screen there. And then okay, go ahead and save that, and then go back to the home screen. So now when we go to the options screen, you know, so that works now too. Now neither one of them have a option to return back yet, so okay, so we're probably gonna stop right now. But we've kind of well, hold on, let me see. Let's go back to our I usually forget to do this, by the way. See, so I forgot to move this into the in progress state. So we're gonna go to our work log, and I don't know, time doesn't really matter. I'm more like interested in the events. So we'll just say 1.5 hours. So I'll say Unity project has been created and a Git repo has been created using SourceTree. Something like that. So then we'll go ahead and say log, and then we have an entry there. This task has actually been completed, so like if I click on the workflow here, the one that's solid is the one where you're currently working in. So we can actually resolve this ticket out. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to say resolve. It's going to ask us to type something, why are we resolving this ticket out, sort of thing. We're just going to say resolving this issue because the Unity project has been completed. Where is it? So we'll just set it to done, and we'll do that. So now it shows us resolved, and then now it's over here. So that particular issue has been completed. Okay, so probably want to go back here, and so here we can see before our scenes list didn't have anything in it, and then the stuff in green shows what's in there now. So we have the home screen, the game screen, and the options screen. These ones are missing because I renamed the scene. That's why it's missing. So, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stage all this. And then I usually try to like to indicate what was done. So I'm just gonna say created I think it's home. Is that how we did it? I don't remember now. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Created home screen, game screen, and options screen. Also created logo placeholder and start button and options button in home screen scene, something like that. So now I'll go ahead and commit that. And then so now if I go back to history, we're right here. And so there we go. That's probably about as far as we're going to get on this session here. But I'll probably be doing another one when I work on it again. So I know the graphics don't look all that awesome right now, but a lot of this is just placeholder stuff. The important thing we're trying to work out is the scripts and the code, and making sure we visually have something to look at, not whether or not it's pretty right now. So the functionality of this screen appears to be good. We'll probably jump into the game screen on the next one, and we'll probably have to jump into Blender and do some preliminary modeling for our scene, and then bring it into Blender, and then kind of start working on it. And then we'll start creating the player and working on the scripts for the player, and then so it'll just kind of evolve from there. Alright, well, until the next recording, this will be it for this one.